Have you ever been in the middle of a run feeling strong and then bam, you develop a sudden sharper pain in your abdomen or side, forcing you to slow down or even stop? That could be a stitch. And if you are a runner, you'll know how frustrating and annoying they can be. But here's the thing. Have you ever taken the time to put much thought into why it happens? More specifically, why it's one side and not the other? Typical explanations like how you breathe, how fit you are, your diet, absolutely makes sense on some level. But when we take a step back, we realize that they aren't specific enough to explain why one exact part of your trunk becomes dysfunctional when doing something normal like running. And so in this video, not only do I want to talk to you about what I've come to understand is the hidden cause of a side stitch when running, but I want to show you a really simple exercise that you can do to hopefully address that quickly. And the third thing is we're going to have a conversation about what you may need to change in your day-to-day life, or at the very least be more aware of, to make sure that that hidden cause doesn't keep coming back over time. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we need to talk about when we're trying to understand what might be the hidden cause of your side stitch when running is we need a little bit of context to give this more meaning, to make it seem more intuitive for you. And one of the big misconceptions that I see with people who are trying to understand why they get a side stitch when they run is that they tend to blame running. And in a way that makes sense. You didn't have a side stitch, and the only moments that you get a side stitch is when you run. So it does make some logical sense to blame running as the cause of that side stitch. But as always, if we take that big enough step back, we obviously know that running is normal. It's a normal expression of human movement. It's one of the things that we are designed to do. And one of the big themes that I'm always trying to promote on this channel is that we shouldn't expect normal things to cause abnormal things. So the way to think of this is while running shouldn't be the cause of your stitch, it can certainly be the thing that you're doing that's really good at exposing the hidden underlying dysfunction that you've taken into running. Running has lots of repetition, there's an element of time involved, and those two things together are basically just testing out the robustness of your mechanics the entire time that you're doing it. If you're running faster, if you start to fatigue more, if you're running up and down hills, if you're sprinting, changing directions, as the demands increase, so does the ability to expose that hidden dysfunction that you've taken into running before you've even put your shoes on and head out the door. And with that in mind, for me as a physiotherapist who is actively trying to better understand the root cause of all the dysfunction that my patients experience when they come and see me, the biggest hidden cause of a stitch that I find clinically is back dysfunction. If you unknowingly accrue some dysfunction in your mid to low back, around the base of that rib cage, the top of your lower back, which if you are a subscriber to the channel or you're a member, you'll know seems to be a consistently important area of dysfunction of the spine that tends to consistently have influence over so many common aches, pains, and dysfunctions around your trunk, hips, and below. But mechanically what seems to happen with a stitch is when you develop some dysfunction at the base of your rib cage, the top of your lower back, the muscle tissue that exists in that same area, when coupled with the demands of breathing and movement when you run, can tend to cause some of the tissue around the front to tighten or even spasm by way of compensation and support. And what I've consistently found is that by locating and resolving some of the stiffnesses, tightnesses, overloaded tissue in that part of the lower back, we then see a complete resolution someone stitches relatively quickly. So as always, I don't want you to have to trust me with this. We want to base everything that we do on results. So what I'm going to ask you to do is if you can get a foam roller, a tennis ball, or a lacrosse ball, and give this exercise a go that we're about to go through, and then let me know in the comments down below what impact, if any, you feel it's had on your symptoms the next time you've gone for a run. So if we're looking to explore any potential role of hidden lower back dysfunction as a cause of a stitch when running, there's a really simple exercise that we can do that uses either a foam roller or a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. And as mentioned, what we want to look for is we want to go looking through the base of your rib cage and the top of your lower back. And how I'd encourage you to do this is having the roller in that area, we can come at this in a couple of different ways. We can get you to have your hips on the ground, have your hands behind your head and neck, and then just gently lower yourself down until you feel you've got enough tension through the appropriate level of your spine. Depending on how you feel, you can also come at it from the other way, where you put your head and shoulders on the ground. We can add tension through your spine by dropping your hips down as far as you feel comfortable. So for me, I'm fortunate enough to be flexible enough to be in this position. But what we're looking for here is we're not looking to roll up and down your spine. We're basically looking to find a specific segment of your spine that feels stiffer, tighter, and restricted to you. And when you roll across from one side to the other side, one of those sides should feel a little bit stiffer and tighter than it does on the other side. So we want you to be at a segment that feels a bit restricted. We want to be on just off to the side of that segment that feels the most restricted for you. And all we want to do here is just gently let the roller press into your spine. It goes without saying that using a roller on your spine, especially your lower back, is not inherently unsafe. Your spine is not fragile. Putting pressure through your spine or pressure through the joints of your spine is normal. Having said that, if you have any cause for concern, perhaps you're osteoporotic, you've got lower bone density, perhaps you have any other reason to take a little bit of caution with this, please be sensible. But if you're someone who has a stitch and that is the main thing that you're dealing with, trying to find which part of your back has the restricted tissue that might be causing some dysfunction through the front can be a very valid exercise. Now, obviously, if you feel like using the roller is too aggressive, you can definitely use a tennis ball or a ball. You can do it lying down. You can do it standing up against a wall as well. Choose the version of this exercise that you feel the most comfortable doing. It's the theory behind trying to mobilize the joints and tissue restrictions in that part of your spine that we're ultimately trying to explore to see what impact it has on your stitches while running. And as I mentioned before, as soon as you've done this, go for a run. See how you feel. If you're someone who has a stitch consistently when you run and you jump on the roller before you go for a run and suddenly you don't feel the same stitch or you don't have a stitch where you would otherwise expect to have one, then you can start to see what role or what effect this is having on your symptoms. But we need to make sure that we base what we do on results. If you do this, you feel your back's really loose and you don't feel like your stitch has changed at all, then either you may not have been in the right spot or this isn't the cause of your stitch. But for me, clinically, time and time again, freeing up segmental dysfunction through that part of the spine, the base of the ribcage, the top of the lower back, consistently has a positive influence over people who have a stitch when running. So please let me know in the comments down below, A, whether you could find some of that hidden dysfunction, B, what side of your spine it's on, and C, what impact did it have on your stitches when running. And then once you've got a good understanding of what impact that part of your spine might be having on your stitches, the next thing that we need to talk about is we need to try and understand why that exact part of your spine has become dysfunctional in the first place. Because if you've solved the mystery of why you get a stitch, but then we don't solve the additional mystery of why that part of your back is dysfunctional, then logically we're not going to solve these stitches forever. And before we get to the final piece of this puzzle, I just wanted to mention that if you find the videos and the content that I put out helpful, hopefully it helps you connect some dots that you haven't been able to before. If you do enjoy this content and it is helpful for you, obviously please consider subscribing to the channel, but also consider becoming a member. For just a small monthly fee, not only will you get access to an ever-growing bank of exclusive video content, you'll also have more direct access to me, but your support also helps me do this. So please consider becoming a member. And now with that being said, you don't need to become a member to solve these stitches, but what you may need to do is take a big step back and try and better understand not only what you do the most with that part of your back throughout the day, but how you do it. The single most common cause of why this part of your back may become dysfunctional is simply the positions that you unknowingly ask it to get into the most throughout the day. And while for some people that can be how you sit at work, how you sit in the car driving, how you sit on the couch watching TV, for others that don't sit down too much, it could be how you stand and bend and lean over through the things that you do, whether you're working in a kitchen, you're working in a checkout, or whether you're someone like myself who stands and leans over a lot to treat people day to day. The common theme that keeps popping up is that there generally has to be some position that you're getting into where you're unknowingly kicking a hinge into that part of your spine, potentially with a little bit of a twist involved to bias one side more than the other, and you're there long enough and often enough as the days and weeks go on that that part of your spine is needing to become stiffer and tighter to cope with that situation. So it goes without saying, if you aren't taking the time and taking a step back to try and understand where you might be, but also trying to improve the positions that you get into, whether that be just holding yourself in a better position, rolling up a towel, sliding it in here to hold you in that better position, or trying to stand up and hinge forward from your hips rather than hinge forward from your lower back. If we're not making those necessary changes over time, then it can be hard to expect that freeing up your back is going to have a sustainable long-term impact on your stitches while running. So as always, if we want to truly solve something, we need something that you feel is helpful, but we also have to pair that up with something that gets to the root underlying cause of that initial dysfunction, so you don't have to care about this stuff anymore, and you can just do normal things like running and breathing. So as always, with that being said, I genuinely hope that that was helpful for you. If it was, let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content and it's helpful for you. Please give strong thought to becoming a member to help support me and the channel and get more exclusive content from me. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.